Hey friends, welcome back to She's At It Again. My name is Tanya and I am about to make some fresh apple muffins, and I wanted to turn the camera on and share the recipe with you. This recipe came from, I think, my home ec class when I was in the 11th or maybe 10th grade, 11th grade, somewhere along in there. So I've had it for quite a while, let's just say that. It's never failed me. We had guests at our house years ago and they had several kids. One of the little girls came in the kitchen as I was making these for breakfast, and she ran into the kitchen, watched me for a while, ran back to the bedroom where her mother was and said, "Mama, Miss Tanya is making muffins and she put a real apple in there." So go with me as I put a real apple in these muffins too. I think you're going to enjoy them. All right, we have our oven preheating right now, so when the buzzer goes off, that's all that is. In this bowl, if you don't have one of these bowls right here, man, you are missing out. I have 3 of these and I use them continually. It has the measurements marked clearly on the side here, and it holds, this is the 8-cup mark, so it holds at least 2 quarts of product in there. So in here we have 1 3/4 cups of just plain organic all-purpose flour. To that, we are going to add 2½ teaspoons of baking powder. There's 1. There's 2. And there's about a half. Three-quarters of a teaspoon of salt, and I use pink Himalayan salt. So not quite a full teaspoon. Half teaspoon of ground cinnamon. This is considered our dry ingredients, and we're going to mix those up. Okay, we'll set that aside. And here we have about 3/4 of a cup of milk. And to that, I'm going to add an egg. I want to break my egg into a separate container than the milk, just in case a shell comes off, and every once in a while these will have little feathers and chicken poop on the side, and I certainly don't want that going in there either. So make sure none of that goes in and it's all clear. So we add the egg to that. This is part of our liquid. In this pan I have, let's see, 1/3 of a cup of butter, which is 5 1/3 tablespoons of butter. Now I've melted it, obviously, as you can see, just so it'll be easier to work into our stuff. Let me get a hot pad here, since the pan's still a little bit warm. And we're going to add about 3 tablespoons of honey to this. I've buttered my tablespoon just so it'll release easier. There's 1. 2. And 3. The original recipe calls for sugar. I just don't use refined sugar that much. It's an inflammatory. It makes me not feel as good as when I don't eat it. So, as a friend of mine who's a doctor said recently, you know, pain is a really good motivator. So I would say if you've never gone off sugar for a while, at the beginning, it'll give you headaches, possibly. It's not the most comfortable transition ever, but once you get off sugar, everything just has a really nice sweet flavor to it. and you will have no regrets whatsoever about avoiding it in your diet. There's really not a whole lot of benefits to it. Okay, that cooled off our butter just a little bit, but it also heated up our honey enough to where it's runnier. We're gonna pour all our liquid ingredients into here. That's our honey and butter in that. Yeah, that pan's cool enough to sit down on the counter now. And then this is our milk and our egg. Now in my home ec class, maybe I don't remember just a whole lot about it. I wasn't necessarily a great student. I made good grades, but I'm very peripatetic and I have a hard time sitting still. So I was bored out of my noodle if they talked to me while I was just sitting in a chair. But I do remember my teachers always saying, in muffins, you don't stir it until it's smooth. You just stir it until no more dry ingredients remain. So that's close enough. There's no dry anything in there. So the last thing we want to add to our batter itself, let's make sure I got everything in there. I'm reading over my directions over here, is 1 cup of our peeled apple that we chopped into little sections. Hey, there goes our oven making the sound, letting us know that the oven's preheated, so that's good timing. So we're just gonna kind of turn these over in there. Don't want to smush up the apples necessarily, but those are Fuji apples. Those are the ones I normally buy, and they have such a good flavor. That one didn't look so great because it's been in the refrigerator a while, but as you could see when I opened it up, there's nothing wrong with it. Absolutely perfect on the inside. All right, so I've buttered my ice cream dasher. That's what we're gonna put them into the pan with. I'm gonna clean my spatula off just a bit here. And then we'll put our batter in this. This is a ceramic muffin tin, and I would say make sure you prep your pan by putting butter and flour in it so these will release easily. But honestly, this pan, for some reason, it releases everything. I've cooked so many different things in this pan and I've never had anything stick, so hopefully this won't be the exception to the rule. Or exception to that trend, I should say, not necessarily a rule. All right, now I'll take the spatula and fill up some of the muffin cups that didn't quite get as much in it as the other ones. Okay, how's that for a clean bowl? All right, let's set this aside. And for our topping, we want to sprinkle these with some coconut sugar and cinnamon. We put about 2 tablespoons of coconut sugar in our bowl, and if you're concerned about there being a different taste, I would say don't worry too much about that. It's not a refined sugar. It's not a processed like a white sugar would be. So you have a lot of benefits with coconut sugar, and you don't have the high inflammatory properties that a white sugar would have. But yes, the initial recipe did call for white sugar, of course. Okay, about a half teaspoon of cinnamon in that. And again, that's our cinnamon. Give this a little stir. Coconut sugar sometimes has little lumps in it, so you just kind of want to press those out. coconut sugar might have a very, very faint coconut taste to it, but honestly, other than the color, I cannot tell a difference in anything that I've ever made. Now, if you're making something coconut, it'll just gonna amplify the flavor of that. But as far as just tasting like a coconut, and obviously it doesn't have the texture of coconut, that's usually the downside to coconut for me, is the texture of it. But coconut sugar is delightful to use. All right, we're gonna pop these in the oven. My oven is preheated to 400 degrees and we're gonna put it in there for about 20 minutes and then we'll come back and see what they look like. Okay, our timer just went off and I turned the oven off, or I turned the beeper off. We're gonna see what these look like. Looking pretty good, huh? All right, we're gonna sit these over here on the stovetop to cool while I close the oven door. It is still summer. It's fighting the air conditioner. It's not hot today, but it's in the 80s today, but it's so humid. Ooh, it's so humid. Okay, these are our apple muffins. I'm gonna let these cool off quite a bit before I put them on a platter or in a container. But those are gonna be delightful.